FlossTube. My name is Jess, and this is my channel Jess Crafts Stitches, which is all about cross stitching. I'm going to be sharing videos exclusively related to that because I have any other crafting over on my other channel, Jess Crafts. This is FlossTube episode number 2. It is Tuesday, February 27th, 2024, and I want to say thank you to everyone who subscribed to my new channel. I had shared previously on my other channel, but I kind of restarted, and I appreciate anyone who came over, subscribed, watched, and is now returning for FlossTube number 2, and I hope that more of you will join over time. I really enjoy watching other people share about their cross stitch and getting ideas for what patterns I would like to stitch, or just learning from others, or seeing their finishes. That's very inspiring. So today I want to share some finishes that I have. I have 3 or 4 finishes and some plans, a couple whips, and in terms of what's going on around here, we got a little bit of a surprise snow today, but it was one of those like short, pretty snows. There's like not much on the ground, but just enough to like have the trees covered and all that. And so hopefully everyone will be able to stay safe driving and just enjoy the pretty snow on the trees. And in February, this is like sort of the second half of February. February's almost over, and I really focused more on my spring stitching once Valentine's Day was over. So I shared my Valentine finish in my last video, which was more just like me sharing all the things that I've ever stitched because I was just kind of doing an intro video. And this will be more of my first regular update video. And so I didn't get a lot done for Valentine's Day because last year when Valentine's Day was happening, I wasn't stitching yet. I had just started stitching around March of last year. So I stitched like one St. Patrick's Day thing and maybe one Easter thing. But I wanted to focus on some more just like general spring stitching for this year because Easter's kind of early and it's really close with St. Patrick's Day. So I thought instead of doing anything holiday specific, I would do spring stitching. And I think a lot of people are kind of identifying with that this year because of the way that the holidays are a little bit more kind of pushed together. So, and then I got to visit my local needle workshop, which I don't get to do very often because like they're close to an hour away. And so well, the one that I visited is an hour away, and there's another one that's a little bit closer. So I'll talk a little bit more about that when I get to haul. But, we've actually had some nice weather, so we've gotten outside a little bit. I like to stitch outside when we can. And so I want to start with some of my finishes. They are all fully finished, but my finishing is very, very simple. So it's not anything like me being able to fully finish something is not nearly as impressive as some of the gorgeous fully finished things or like the sewing that other people do. But Helen D, who you probably already know, but I love her here on FlossTube. She does a lot of great tutorials. She had a great idea for a make way for Market Sal. And as I mentioned, I had just kind of started stitching around that time last year. So I hadn't really bought a lot of stuff that was specifically for Market or from Market. And her suggestion was while we wait to get our Market releases, people started pre-ordering things and all that, let's stitch some patterns we bought from previous markets that we really had to have but hadn't actually got to stitch yet. I think that's a great idea, but it just, for me, I didn't really have those because I think I have Hop Peep Leap from Luminous Fiber Arts, which I believe was released at Market last year, but that might be like the only pattern. And I did stitch the bunny from it, so I suppose I could have stitched those other two, but I took it more as like let me stitch some of my older patterns while I wait to get maybe some of the newer patterns. And we'll talk about how mixed success that was in terms of waiting for newer patterns because for me this challenge is like Market's cool. And like seeing lots of new patterns being released is exciting. However, as a newer stitcher, I actually find that like I discover new patterns all the time because I discover new designers all the time. Like people in my last video left me some recommendations or like, I see you like this kind of stuff. Hey, check out this designer, that kind of thing. So I'm always finding new patterns. I'm always seeing a new Etsy shop or something like that. Or even like people will share about Market releases and they'll mention a designer and show, some of the new stuff that's coming out, but I haven't seen them before. So I go to get to look at their whole back catalog, and I'm like, ooh, well, I already want to stitch this and this and this, and it's already available. So waiting for market, if, like as someone who doesn't know every pattern Plum Street has ever created, seeing the new Plum Street is really cool, but I'm also like, yeah, but what about these, 10 patterns that I haven't really been exposed to before and I think are really cute and I want to stitch one of those or something like that. So just a little context on that for me. But anyway, I was motivated by the idea of stitching some patterns that I already owned. And when I first started stitching last year, one of the first sets of patterns I bought was the Hello Seasons series by Frosted Pumpkin Stitchery. And I stitched Hello Summer last year. This was the one that I really, really liked, motivated me to buy the series. And I changed the little boy, and I want him to be in each of the scenes. So each of the scenes has a kid in a like holiday or sorry, seasonal theme and seasonal scene. And so, he's camping, which we like to go camping, and we do tent camping. So that's why I liked in particular that he was with a tent. You see a lot of camping stuff with campers. We don't have one. So I like the idea of, and I'm going to show you another piece that has a tent in it. And anyway, so I stitched this. And then on Christmas Day of last year in 2023, I started Hello Winter. And it was kind of, there was a lot of stitching here. Like I started in the middle, and so I had started doing this scene and getting a little bit of those confetti stitches with the snowflakes, and then a lot of solid stitching here. I kind of just slowed down on it. And then when I saw the Make Way for Market sale, I thought, oh, this is a perfect reason to start finishing some of those very first patterns that I bought that are kind of languishing, i.e. this whole Hello Seasons series. And so I was able to finish it up. I did make some changes from the way the original looks, besides changing one of the characters to the little boy who I want to be throughout all of the scenes. I also changed some of the colors. I pulled out the pink and I added some more blue into it. And this was also stitched in a purple color. And so in the original, the hot cocoa stand and the Hello Winter are both in a purple. And they're different purples, I believe, but I liked changing it up a little bit more so that the hot cocoa scene and everything would pop a bit. And so that's why I added this light blue to the outside. It did make the words like maybe a little harder to read than the purple would have, but overall, I'm really quite happy with it. And I do know all of the color changes and stuff that I made if anyone were interested, but I basically just am like, I'll pull something close from stash, and I will often do that with um really, I mean, whether it's fancy floss that's called like overdyed floss that's called for DMC, I will sometimes buy floss especially if I'm really inspired by the way the original looks, I will try to match the floss, but I also like to change um the fabric colors and stuff that I use. So, I definitely do a lot of changes, and I do try to record them all. I have it's so Emma cross stitch journal, and it's helpful to reference. I really appreciate having something like this because, for instance, when I was finishing off the next one, I couldn't remember what color I used for the little boy's hair. And since I want him to look the same, like he's going through all the scenes, I needed to look that information up. So, helpful resource there. But of course, I think that there's some people who, like on Etsy, like the Naptime Stitcher, who sell printables that you can use to similarly just kind of like write down the information. Or obviously, you just put it on a sticky note too, but like to keep it organized. And so then after I finished Hello Winter, I decided to move right along to Hello Spring as well. I think I'm gonna have to pause on Hello Autumn, but actually, we'll talk about that. But it was a lot. It's a lot of stitching on both of them. For me, I stitch very small things, and but I did enjoy the solid stitching because once I like wrote in the word spring and put the dots down, I could just kind of fill in. And I found there was times it was really nice for that. Like I'd stitch while watching TV sometimes in the evenings, and sometimes it's a lot harder to pay attention to what's actually happening on the show, or I make a mistake in my stitching because I'm trying to count something. So I kind of like try to be a little bit more selective about what I stitch while otherwise occupied. And so it's nice to have something, or like car stitching. This is pretty easy to stitch in the car because it is 14 count Charles Craft Fiddler's cloth. I bought this, I picked and bought this cloth when I first started stitching, and I didn't really know much about it. And it's not necessarily my favorite, but it's stiff, so I don't have to put it in a hoop, which I ordinarily do. I can stitch in hand, and the holes are really big, so I can, do car stitching, especially when it's just like filling in back and forth. So that was kind of nice. And now I feel really happy that I have 3 of them done. And I think it's extra motivating to get that last one done. But I also know I have some time before autumn, so I don't have to rush it. But I was really happy. And as you can see, my fully finished way for these is crazy simple because this is a cloth that doesn't fray very much and it won't be handled very much. I'll change it out, 4 times a year or whatever. But they all just sit in this frame together. I'll put a little bit of, like, I put cardstock in between them and that kind of thing. And then I just put it right up on the wall with these 3M like picture hanging strips. Yeah, 3M picture hanging strips. And so I also like, they were kind of motivating to finish because I was like, well, I can fully finish them really, really easy. And so technically it is still winter and it is snowing outside. So I should probably keep winter at the front of the frame for the moment. But our weather is just going back and forth, back and forth. It will feel like winter one day and spring the next. But I have them both done, so I could even switch them if I wanted to. But I think I'll probably start switching things in March as, sort of the Easter season comes around. I don't know if I'll wait always till the first of the season. It always surprise, like, it sounds silly, but Christmas, or sorry, the first day of winter is actually really, really close to Christmas. Like it's usually like the 20 something. I think it was the 21st this past year. And so I'm often thinking it's winter for a really long time before, because as soon as Thanksgiving's over, for some reason in my mind it becomes winter and it's just not. So I don't know. I might change it more on my whims than on the actual day of the new season. So the Hello Seasons series were my first 2 finishes that were also fully finished objects. And then I did finish one more teeny tiny thing. It was silly, but I have a lot of stuff that I'm really excited to stitch, and I wanted to start like kitting things up. And I realized I had a whole project bag, and I use these bags from the Container Store. They're the KonMari zip top bags, and one of them was being taken up by this teeny tiny ornament that, like, it was an ornament kit that I had found at the thrift store, and I guess it's probably from like the 90s. Um, and I had stitched about half of it, and then it was just kind of languishing, and I was like, you know what, I'm just going to finish that real quick so I can claim my project bag back. Obviously I could have just put it anywhere else, but I thought, why not just finish it up real quick, and then I'll just add that to my like Christmas bucket downstairs. And then the other fully finished object, I would have to insert a small video that I took over on my desk, because the other thing that I fully finished recently, and is actually more of an elaborate fully finish for me, was a present for my sister. And so it has already been shipped to her and she has received it. And there was some minor damage, not to the cross stitch itself, but to the finishing on the way. But she assures me it can be hot glued back in place. But I will insert that video, hopefully, and then I will continue on with some of my other projects. I'm recording this when I finish this because I want to share it in my floss tube, but I gotta get it out to my sister. This is my sister's birthday present. She loves decorating with Peeps for Easter, and so I decided to stitch her this piece as a birthday present, even though it is for the Easter holiday season, but they're close enough this year that it works out pretty well. So this is Helen D's Easter Peeps pattern. It's a free pattern you can get at her website, eastcoastcrafter.com, I believe is what it is. And she originally charted it in purple with a yellow peep bunny, but my sister said that purple was her favorite Peep. And so I made the bunny purple, and then I had to change up the color for the words. And so this is Weeks Dye Works Amethyst, and the pink words are Weeks Dye Works Strawberry Fields. And since this was something I was going to gift to her, I went kind of more all out in my finishing than I ever do. And I found this box at Michael's in their Make It section. There's actually like a lot of different boxes in that section that would be great for finishing cross stitch, and I might talk about that because I did pick up a few more. But anyway, this garland, these carrots are also from Michael's. The scrapbook paper is from an American Crafts paper in my stash, and the orange ribbon is from the Dollar Tree. It's just kind of like a hodgepodge of some stuff that I had, plus some stuff that I bought specifically to decorate this, and I painted the box. I wanted to reincorporate the purple. She said that purple is her favorite for the Peep, but then it wound up not being in the pattern very much, so I kind of wanted to bring it back in with the cardstock and the frame, and so hopefully that all worked out. I hope she really enjoys it. I did, it can stand up because it's really thick, so that's nice, but I also added a little hanger on the back so she can do hopefully she can do what she wants with it. And I'm not much of a hot gluer, so I'm hoping it all sticks together. I'm one of those people who owns a hot glue gun because I feel like it's what crafty people should have, but I don't actually do that much with that kind of thing. So yeah, hopefully I put enough on there and made sure it was hot enough and all that. But I think it looked really cute, and I'm happy with it. It's a very quick, easy pattern to stitch, and thank you, Helen, for providing that free pattern to all of us. So I want to share some plans. Actually, let's do whips first, and then I'll share some plans. Okay, so I finished Hello Spring, and I already had something else that I was working on. So actually, let me show that first. So the other project I have besides Hello Spring that I've been working on, and this one I'm actually really close to a finish as well, is it's an Easter sampler. It's also called Easter Pincushion. It's from an Etsy shop called Natty's Cross Stitch Designs. It's a small stitch, and it's kind of designed to be a pincushion. So as you can see, there's a front, and then there is a back, which has a little like cross-stitched carrot at the top, and then you could put your needles on it. I'm not going to finish it that way. I'll talk to you like briefly about how I'm going to finish it. But here is my almost finish of that. So I did decide to change out some of the colors. She had some green and orange for the lettering, but, and I showed this in my last one, but I had stitched Lizzie's Kate's Spring ABCs. And I wanted this pattern to look and be displayed like together with this one. And so I thought, well, why not pull in the colors? Because I had extra too. You know, this is Weeks Dye Works threads this was called for. And I thought I could use a lot of the same Weeks Dye Works threads in this piece, and I have plenty left over from this one. So I decided to change up the colors and do the overdyed floss and the same moon glow. So this is moon glow, picture this plus 16 count Aida. And so I decided to stitch this one in that as well. And what I'm going to probably do is, well, things that I'm definitely gonna do. Down here at the bottom, it said Easter. I'm going to change it to spring. So I printed a second copy because it was a PDF pattern, and I just like taped the word spring in this space so that I had it like charted and I know like where to put all the letters and have it evenly spaced ahead of time. And I'm definitely going to do that. And the other thing I thought is I might put the carrot that goes on the back here at the top. So there's a carrot charted, and I could add it just to make it a little bit longer because of where I want, like what I want to put this finished piece in. I have this longer frame that I've thrifted, and as you if you've seen my other videos, you might know that like all of these come out. So sometimes it's a little hard to pull it out with my finger, but you can just get something behind it. And so I changed them out, and I want to have something for spring in here because I have this Snowman sampler from Cherry Hill Stitchery, which I love. I had a pattern from Helen D in here. for Christmas, but I need something for spring. And so I thought this would be cute. And if I did it as spring and not Easter, so if I wrote spring and not Easter, I could keep it up longer. So that's my motivation and plans for this one. We'll just see. If I don't stitch the carrot, I think it will still work in this frame, but because this frame is longer, I think if I added a little bit more to the piece, like made the whole piece a little bit longer, it would look really nice. Now I did do a center start, so that might get a little bit tricky because I won't have very much room left up here, like to do any finishing work with. But because I left actually some good margins on this one, which I don't always remember to do, but I did, I hopefully it will work out well. And I am absolutely loving this Moon Glow fabric for Easter, so it'll come up some other times. So that one's really close to a finish. That's another one that I will probably really focus on, but that is a new purchase for me. So I don't think that would count for the Make Way for Market salad because I purchased it when I was working on those Hello Spring. I actually, for the month of February, I hadn't bought anything until probably like the 18th or something like that. Like, I don't know, I was having one of those days where it's just like, it just felt like um everything was kind of overwhelming. It wasn't very fun. I don't know. Like I guess having a bad day basically. And then I was like, you know what? I'm gonna treat myself to some patterns that are sitting in my Etsy cart. And this was one of them. So I didn't start working on it right away, but you'll see. I fell off the wagon of not purchasing. And it was only a couple weeks, but still. And then I just like hit every bump on the way, like you fall off the wagon, hit every bump, like in terms of just, I kept like, well, I've already started purchasing, so let's keep going. Um, so I look up forward to that finish soon. But then I also was like, when I finished Hello Spring, I wasn't quite ready to finish that piece because there were still some like decisions I was making because I changed colors and I've changed other nothing like too complicated about the pattern, but like I've also, because I was stitching an over dyed floss, I was trying to be better about actually like taking advantage of the variegation. And so I was um not loop starting, which I had done previously with over dyed floss, and you can't really enjoy it as much. And so I decided that I would, do it the right way with two strands that were dyed together. And like, so this project had kind of some stops and starts, and all this vine in here. Like, I know there's plenty of people like, this is a tiny piece, right? But like, I'm a simple cross stitcher. Anyway, so they were a little bit challenging to keep track of, for instance. And so I, focused on getting that part done and took a break. And what I took a break on was this other piece that was, because it's technically something I already started in the sense that I stitched a single star into it. But I guess it's a whip from last year because of that. So I have, um, it's called Starry Skies and Fireflies by Cherry Hill Stitchery. And I had, as like I said, I'd put a single star here in the corner last year. So it was technically a whip, and it was technically like it was in my cross stitch journal as having been started, even though I could have easily like, pulled that out if I didn't want to count it or something like that. But I just, because this was on like a 14 count and everything was like kind of simple, I was like, I'm just going to take a break and put a few stitches into this while I decide what I want to work on next, or while I think about some of the decisions I wanted to make about that other piece. So um, that was my other whip. And then I did thought I should share with you, because I didn't give this as my update in February, but I had really wanted to stitch the Valentine Quaker from Primrose Cottage, but I don't know, it just didn't work out for me. I made some good progress on it, and but I just felt like I had to pay attention a lot to it. And maybe it's in part because of the colors that I chose. Like, they're not really a high contrast. So in order to see where I was stitching. It's kind of a darker fabric, that kind of thing. This is Rubius from Picture This Plus, and the floss is Dahlia from Weeks Dye Works. So I'm going to put this away. And it's just going to be something that hopefully I will pick up next January and maybe get a finish on, because I'm probably about a quarter of the way through or more. And it's a really pretty piece. I've loved seeing everyone's finishes, and it would probably look nicer if it wasn't wrinkled. But yeah. So that's technically something that'll sit in my whip pile, but I don't feel any like guilt or whatever around it, because I'm like, well, that is clearly something that I don't need to finish anytime soon, and to bring back out the next season, next time we come to that season. Okay, so I did mention that I got a chance to go to Colorado Cross Stitcher, and that was it's always fun to like actually go into a store and see the flosses and see the fabrics and that kind of thing, or even just to see the patterns, because as like I said, as somebody who hasn't cross stitched for very long, I've only been about a year at this point. There's some people who I've like haven't discovered yet, or haven't seen all of their designs from and stuff. So it can be really fun. And so I picked up a couple of patterns of fabric, a lot of floss recently, because sorry, I was kind of walking away from the microphone there. But I have picked up some floss because some of the patterns that I've been picking have called for more over dyed floss, or I just, because I've been thinking more about how I'm working with it, I'm really liking the look of it and all that kind of stuff. So I did pick up quite a bit of over dyed floss, and I'm certainly not going to go through all of it with you, but I've a lot of the patterns I've picked have started calling for Weeks Dye Works. And so when I've been thinking about my own floss picks, I've been looking at the Weeks Dye Works I already have, or been pulling more from the same collection. So that way, because I think, like, I figure if I'm like, oh, I need an orange and I'm trying to pick it out, I know which oranges I already have, and so I'm more likely to get one that's a little bit different. Whereas if I try to go across companies, it might be a little bit harder to know how like different they'll be. I don't know if that makes sense, but just I was like, let me kind of maybe commit a little harder to one than all of them, because then I maybe will get a greater variety. But also, if a pattern calls for something and I really like the way the pattern looks, I'm just going to purchase the floss that it calls for as budget allows. And then I also, like, when I went to Colorado Cross Stitcher, I was like, sometimes I'm picking my own colors, and I've noticed I don't have. This is probably double what I even started with before I went to Colorado Cross Stitcher. But like, I was like, I don't have any light blues in my stash. So let me just pick a pretty light blue in case I find a pattern that I want to add some light blue to, or I don't have any grays yet. I think I still need like a light pink. But then other colors, like I've wound up with some, quite a few browns or greens or something like that. So that was really fun to be able to just kind of look at the floss wall and be like, ooh, that's pretty, as well as pick a few for specific patterns. And I did also get a piece of um, 16 count chai from Seraphim, I think is how you say it. I don't know, it's not actually written on here. Just have to remember it. Um, and it's a pretty neutral fabric, but something I didn't really notice when I first got it is there are some like spots on it, which I can only assume are intentional. Um, but they're very few and far between. So I don't know if I might kind of creatively choose how I stitch around those, but it was a pretty piece of fabric. I did need like some more neutrals, and so it's quite a large piece as well. And so there's a series that I was thinking about. Maybe I'll wind up stitching on it, but I don't have any really strong plans for it yet. I try not to, I've definitely heard people say it's really helpful to have a little stash of fabric, which makes total sense to me. It's kind of like a little bit of a stash of floss, so that when I'm coming to a new project, if I'm like, oh, I think an overdyed would look really pretty here, not having to go and specifically order just one pack of floss or a few packs of floss, having a few things on hand can be fun to help you to get started right away. Especially, if you buy like a PDF or something, it'd be fun to just start stitching. So then I haven't done a perforated paper ornament yet, and I picked Creepy Crawly from Satsuma Street. It comes with the beads and sequins, the perforated paper, I think the needle, the floss, everything. And I thought, like Mill Hill kits, I've seen Helen D do some finishes of those, and I think she did some from Satsuma Street as well. Then I thought, well, I'll know where I can go to learn how to finish them and just to try something new out. But I thought I would do a Halloween one because Halloween is closer than Christmas, and I love Halloween, which you'll see when we start getting to like autumn time, as I'll buy way too much Halloween. I wanted to buy so much autumn and Halloween when I was at Colorado Cross Stitcher. I do like to stitch a lot of seasonal stuff in general, so like that's not too surprising. But yeah, I just was like, no matter what time of year it is, I'm always drawn to autumn stuff. And I got the Season's Blessings by Leela's Studio. She's another person I've only recently discovered, and I really, really like her stuff. And it's funny because I've definitely seen her stuff before, but like I didn't quite like I've seen people stitching things and I'm like, oh, that's pretty, and didn't realize it was from her or something. I don't know. But anyway, I have another pattern from her that I'm going to start soon, but I thought these birds were really cute and I'm looking forward to, I probably won't stitch them for a while though, but that's okay. Um, Actually, I don't think anything I bought was in season, but anyway. I bought Gobble from Bent Creek. I really think this series is super cute where there's like the alphabet and then there's a word kind of spread throughout it. And so this will be my first one from it, but I saw Helen D stitch. I think she stitched this one too and she had it as part of it, but she also stitched Lucky, I think, or Luck for St. Patrick's Day and showed that off recently. And so when I saw this one, this was one of the ones I was drawn to about it, so I picked that one up. Again, who knows when I'll actually get to it because it's not the right season for it. Um, and this is also a new to me designer, Collection Tralala. It appears, I want to say that it's an Italian designer, but I don't actually know. But that means, so ABC and then that means snowman up there. So that's the word for snow, or snow person. And so it's a snowman sampler, which I love samplers. So I thought this one was pretty cute as well. And again, it was an opportunity to try a new designer who I'd never heard of before. Then I also got an order from 123 Stitch, and ironically, and so some of those flosses were also from 123 Stitch, and I got another piece of Moon Glow because I've been wanting to stitch all my Easter stitches on it. And ironically, my 123 Stitch order arrived on the same day that I had traveled to Colorado Cross Stitcher. So it looked kind of funny that I got like so much stuff in one day and one weekend. But I did decide, so Two Tall Stitchers and Mrs. AZ Family Zoo are hosting a Lizzie Kate series, Sal, on Instagram. They've been talking about it on their FlossTubes as well. And I had done, as I showed you before, the Lizzie Kate Spring ABCs. So I thought, why not do all of the seasons? Because I can just change them out in that frame. So I'll already know how I want to finish it. It'll be super easy. And that was really fun. I stitched it in like 2 or 3 days. It was really fast stitch. So I have summer ABCs. I did not get the buttons because I did get the button for spring, and I don't know, there's an in the pattern it gives you stitching instructions instead. So if you don't want the button or you can't obtain the button, there's still something to put there. So I thought I would just stitch it so I didn't have to worry about the thickness of storing the buttons. So I decided not to get the buttons for the other ones. And I also might, so autumn. Autumn is my favorite. I love it and I will keep it as is because I think it's very clearly like good for the whole season. It's just a pumpkin and an acorn. And spring ABCs does have an egg. Yep. So it's a little more Eastery, but I I don't know. I like it as good enough for all of spring. Like bunnies, carrots are fine. It's only when you really get to the Easter egg, which again it does have, that to me it's much more Eastery, or like baskets, certain things like are more Eastery to me. But winter ABCs has a Christmas tree. And as discussed earlier, winter and Christmas, the like amount of time they overlap is actually really, really short. It's fall, like almost right up until Christmas, and then you'd put this out, and then Christmas would be over. And so I thought maybe I will change it so that it's more of just a evergreen tree. And so maybe I will keep the star and the little like white snow or whatever. I mean, it's supposed to be ornaments, but like maybe make it more like snow and then get rid of just the red back and forth ribbon. So it's a little less Christmassy and it's a little more wintry. And maybe change some of the, like instead of doing red and green, I could maybe incorporate like green and then do the red as blue or something. So make it just a little bit more general winter and not so specifically Christmas. And then the same thing, this one here, I mean, some people are like patriotic all um, summer long. I get why that makes sense because there's like Flag Day and 4th of July and Labor Day, and all of those are happening in the summer. Um, but it's not my favorite summer theme. So I'm not sure if I want to switch this one up too. So that's kind of why I bought them all and I want to do the Lizzie Kate series Sal with Two Tall Stitchers and Mrs. AZ Family Zoo, but I'm also being picky. So maybe I'll just stitch autumn next. Who knows? Because that's the one I know I want. I also found a Lizzie Kate at Colorado Cross Stitcher. Oop, flip it. I don't have the whole series, but I thought, it was like it was a discounted one there. And so I thought, well, I'll just pick it up because maybe one day I will stitch the whole series because I think these flippets are pretty sweet. And it did have the charm inside of it and everything. So okay. I feel like I've just talked a ton about buying stuff but like I love to see other people's cute patterns. Like I said, that's how I discover new patterns. And then I did also pick up the Just Cross Stitch magazine because Helen D, she mentioned something interesting is the if you order the magazine, there's like the little advertisement that comes in it. It says like you can subscribe for 2 years for $15 a year or 1 year for 20, I think is the current offer. Um in the magazine, which I think is different than the website. I don't know. But she had said, "Well, I'm going to order the Halloween and the Christmas probably." And I was like, I did too last year. And if you consider that if you just purchase those two magazines, that's about $20. You could just subscribe and get the other four magazines for free, essentially, because if you're going to pay $20 for two, you get those two issues plus four more as part of your subscription. So I thought that actually made a lot of sense. Since I agree, I will probably wind up buying the Christmas and Halloween versions of the magazine. So I decided to pick this one up on the newsstand, get the little leaflet, and subscribe going forward. And in this magazine, something that I think I have two things, and like one of these I'll probably stitch. This is Egg Hunt by Embroidery by Kate. So if I want a Easter specific one, I think I'd probably stitch this one because, very clearly Egg Hunt is an Easter thing. And it has the little Easter eggs here on the bottom. So it's small enough that I could probably take the time to stitch that. Or Hello Spring by Erin Elizabeth. And it looks like this is Erin Elizabeth's first time in the magazine because it says introducing on the other side. Um, but it's not my first time seeing her as a designer. She has some really pretty stuff. I like her Pumpkin Lane sampler that's coming out in Needlework Market. And this magazine also had a feature on floss tubes where they highlighted a few floss tubes, including Chantel's 141 and definitely another floss tuber I had heard of. I'm trying to remember, but that was kind of cool to see them mentioning floss tubes since I think there's you know maybe there's some people who get the magazine and gotten it for years and aren't as aware of what's available online. So yeah, they mentioned Saltbox Stitcher, Elizabeth Ann Can Stitch, Colorado Cross Stitcher. I was like, I knew this was relevant for Susan, and so I'd she's the owner of the shop I went to, but also has her FlossTube channel. So that's cool. And then I did want to I'm getting towards the end of all the things that I wanted to share with you guys. Um, I did briefly want to say I did finish one more Valentine thing that I forgot to share last time. It's the I Love You from Cherry Hill Stitchery. She had a lot of smalls. I like this one in particular because even though it's after Valentine's Day, I could see stitching this any time of year for someone. I did make it into kind of an ornament to hang up because I think, again, you could even like give this for Christmas. Um, but yeah, so she has the free Happy Valentine's pattern, but then there was also like I Love You. There was XOs and Kisses, I want to say, or maybe those were separate. So yeah, she's some little cute Valentine smalls that I enjoyed stitching, and I think this is small enough I could even like stitch it on a card and give it to somebody. So that's a little fuzz on it. And then I figured I would show you what I stitched last year for Easter, as is coming up. And this was a freebie from Shannon Christine, Shannon Christine Designs. She's extremely generous, has shared many small free patterns over the years. And this was another one. So in case you hadn't seen it before, it's probably not my best stitching because this is like, I think literally the first thing I ever stitched. And the back is, as a result, a hot mess, but it was a cute little guy, and this is about the time of year it might be good to look up this pattern. So I'll link that below. Then I just want to talk briefly about a few plans because they are related to some SALs. And so in case they are also interesting to you, you might want to join in on a SAL. So I mentioned the Make Way for Market SAL, which is kind of ongoing. Helen D is encouraging us to stitch things that we bought at past markets or just older patterns as we wait for our new patterns to come in. Obviously, I did not wait to buy new patterns because I just bought a whole bunch that I showed you. So I failed on that part of the SAL, but I did stitch some older things. So pluses and minuses. Okay, so one of the other SALs I want to share with you is the Bunny Parade SAL 2024. This is tiny, but I bought the PDF pattern. So this is Leela's Studio. These are the Bunny Parade. This is, I think, set one, but there are two sets and there's different little like cars that the bunnies are driving. I really loved the carrot car. That's the one that I want to stitch. And so it is the Bunny Parade Sal 2024 hosted by Mrs. AZ Family Zoo and Sarah's Stitchery, who I both enjoy watching both of them here on FlossTube. So I will link them, but they just stitch a different one each year. I think Sarah already finished hers, and Alison, who I believe is Mrs. AZ Family Zoo's name, she is stitching, was it the asparagus? Oh, I forgot. I'm sorry. I should have wrote it down. But they just pick a different one to stitch every year. And I like that. That's a cute idea. Like, there's 8 in the series because there's 4 in the other set of 4. So you'd have something you knew you could stitch every year without buying new patterns. It's kind of fun. And so I'm going to stitch the carrot car. There's a bunch of all the called for is DMC. But I want to continue to kind of tie my Easter pieces together. Although my other two, I guess I said, were kind of technically spring. This is probably the most Eastery, but again, it's only a bunny and a carrot, so I might just count it as only spring. We'll see. I'm going to stitch it on Moon Glow, just like I did my other pieces. And then I'm going to pull in some of the colors. So I stitched with carrot for the carrots on the other ones, and so I'll pull that one in, and then some of maybe like the pink or that kind of thing. So I have all of my fabric. It's cut. My floss is picked out because I had to relocate a carrot skein. I have my hoop and everything all ready to go. I like to use the Nurge hoops and put it in my container store bag here. And so as soon as I finish my Easter pincushion, we'll get going on that. Then I mentioned the Lizzie Kate series. Sorry. There's the FFO Challenge 2024, which is hosted by Jen from Too Tall Stitchers, who also is doing the Lizzie Kate series style. And she's encouraging you to like finish the things that you're stitching, and finish old things that like fully finish things that you've finished in the past. I don't have a lot of that because I haven't been stitching very long, but I'm using it to motivate me to to finish things to fully finish things as I finish them, which I've been doing really, really well on this year, mostly because I finish very, very simply, but still. Okay, and um, so Bunny Parade Sal, Leap Year Sal from the Camping Stitcher. I wanted to pick out a pattern for the Leap Year Sal, and then as I was thinking about it, I was like, this can be something that I can take my time with. I don't have to pick something that I'm going to finish really quickly because I stitch such small stuff that I often finish it like within a month or two of starting it, if that. Sometimes it's literally days because I pick something really small. I don't know if I have all of it, and it's not very exciting, so that's fine. But basically, we discussed these earlier. For the leap year Sal, I'm going to pick Hello Autumn from the Frosted Pumpkin Stitchery because if I only stitch this like a little bit each month until we get towards autumn, that'll work out. So, I could take my time, takes the next, 6 months to finish this and it will still be ready by autumn. So I could, some of the suggestions were like pull it out on the 29th of every month or check in on the 29th of every month. So I could pick something that was a little bit bigger. This is not very big, but for me, it is on the bigger side. And I stitched a whole one this month, so I can do it in a shorter amount of time. But I thought that would be a fun pick so that I could, kind of get going on this project and have it ready for autumn. So the Camping Stitcher Leap Year Sal, and it's a start along. So just start something, and you don't have to finish it. Soon or ever if you don't want to. And then the last thing that I want to start is I have dedicated myself, so a challenge for myself this year was on the first of every month, I would start one thing and dedicate myself to finishing it by the end of the month so that I would at the very least, and I've done well with this goal so far, not that because it's not a very challenging goal, but I like to have easy goals sometimes, and that is to start a piece at the beginning of every month and get it done by the end of that month. So at the very least, at the end of my second year of stitching, I would have 12 more seasonal pieces to display. And so for February, I had picked the spring ABCs. And since I don't need any more ABCs for a while, but I do need some more Easter things because I've done a few spring, I decided on March 1st, I will start Happy Easter by Primrose Cottage Stitches, and I will make sure that it is finished by Easter, which is also the 31st. So I always want to finish it in the month, but in this case, it will also be for the holiday, and so that I will have at least one Easter thing finished. So if the bunny in the car doesn't get finished, that's okay because it's spring. And also, this is going to be the one I dedicate myself towards because it is quite a bit simpler and I think it's very doable for the month. I'm trying to keep myself a easy goal. So those are all of my plans and sales and that kind of thing. I did already mention several floss tubers in terms of mentioning them like with their sals and that kind of thing, but Mrs. AZ Family Zoo, Sarah Stitchery, Two Tall Stitchers, Helen D, the Camping Stitcher. All those guys already mentioned. The other one I did want to briefly mention who I had watched, and she did a really pretty finish of the Frosted Pumpkin Stitchery. It was a stitch along. Oh, I can't remember the name of it now. I should wrote it all down. So it's Catkin and Lily, and it's like the medieval. I want to say it's like because there's like jousting and oh, I wish I remember the name of it. But it was a really big Frosted Pumpkin Stitchery Sal, and it's not a Sal any longer. So I think you can buy the whole thing. It's all been revealed. But she did a finish of it recently, and that was really pretty. And she has a lot of other things. She does some full coverage, which is so far beyond me. Like I'm sitting here complaining about, solid row for, 7 rows and she does these like beautiful gorgeous full coverage pieces. But yeah, I wanted to mention her as well. So I hope you enjoyed taking a look at all the different things I've been stitching on, plans that I have made. I have enjoyed watching other people's plans. I've been enabled by so many, but so many in so many good ways too. Like making like they make a way for market enabling. That's great. And then also, the pattern buying enabling, watching FlossTube the other day and being like, let me go order that real quick. But hopefully it's a balance for you as well. Thank you so much for joining me. You can subscribe if you would like to see more, and I will see you in a couple of weeks. Bye.